Hi, hello. So it's very lovely to be here. My name's Nicola Schauerman and I'm part of the art group Genetic Moo. And I want to tell you a little bit about our project. So first of all, that's me. On the left, that's Tim. And we're interactive artists, and as Kate said, our work, we're showing 4 pieces of work, 2 of which were designed for this event in E3. And we make work that we to activate the audience, okay? So just a little bit about that. My background's actually originally in 16mm film, and I moved to digital editing when it came out, and I was always interested in how you could get the audience to do something, because actually having a captive audience sitting down, much like you're doing at the moment, perhaps isn't the most interesting use of the audience. So I was always interested in getting the audience interactive, and Tim's background is in film, but also more importantly coding, and an interest in simulating life through code. And our mutual interest is in creating spaces to immerse the audience. So this piece of work, which we designed in 2010, nicely describes the way we work. We use technology that's readily available and cheap, easily replaceable. This piece is running with a webcam, and the audience's clothing colour is captured, and it runs into the second part of the artwork, which is a shell. So this is based on the nautilus, which some of you may know, a creature that lives in the sea. And the colour of the clothing builds up the shell over time. And this exposes Tim's interest in programs, cellular automata, for example. And the creature on the right, the head, is made out of video and photographs. And this describes my contribution to the project. I work, as I say, in film and photography, and I construct virtual creatures out of, in this case, human flesh. We're inspired by science, very particularly biology and simple life forms, amoeba, bacteria. We're interested in life forms that have alternative strategies for survival. So it's a playful thought about what humans could evolve to better cope with this difficult world we live in. Maybe be polymorphous, shapeshifters, or be immortal like the rotifers and slime molds. Some of you may recognise these creatures. We want our work to be familiar and alien to the audience. The reason being, we want to draw the audience in. We want them to take a look. So you'll notice we've got flesh on the left, and in one of the pieces in E3, we've created a work called Drifters, which is where people are building plankton-like creatures out of flowers from my family's garden. And we work, so I said we were interested in simple creatures and creatures that live in the sea. We're interested in things like the body form of creatures, pentaradial, and you can see we've got starfish and things inspired by urchins, etc. Some of these look quite sexual. This is another way of engaging the audience, but also playing with this connection of future human evolution. I was also interested in the colonies, sea squirts. You have a number of creatures in this museum that live together, working together to survive. So we're interested in intuitive interaction. When you see our work, one in particular on the left when you go in is what's called an unencumbered interaction. What that means is you don't need to wear any specialist tools or devices to engage. You can just go in and start interacting immediately. And we're also very interested in immersive spaces. And I understand from Kate, unfortunately I couldn't get to the Team Labs talk this morning, but about this idea of actually being surrounded by projection. And Tim and I are very interested in this. So we'll often use multiple projections to create this environment that you walk into and that responds to you. And as mentioned, because we want it to be intuitive and not present a dilemma to the audience, we also make it possible for multiple users, which means many people can enter the space at one time. There's no queuing system or one at a time please posters. So we are very interested in creating what we call creatures. So our artworks we think of as creatures. And if we want them to respond to you, then we need to give them senses. So we give them the ability to see through using Kinect sensor or webcams, as mentioned, simple technologies. So our creatures can see you and they can hear you with microphones. This is an aeroplankton work that listens to the space, the sounds in the space, and responds. And we also code in behaviours, so our creatures appear to like you. They will respond to whatever happening. So we're currently working on a project called Micro World, which has been we've been working on for a number of years. I've got a booklet at the front, so if anyone's interested in knowing any more, please feel free to take one. We set up a project with a guy in Leicester called Sean Clark. We were interested in creating a digital ecosystem, and by this we meant that the artworks would be talking to each other or responding to each other as well as the audience and the space. And some creatures may survive and thrive and some may die. And very much an experiment. And this is how the space works. So very simply, we've got some of the artworks, most of the artworks were looking at things. So the artworks at the bottom are looking for colour, which was provided by the amp pieces, or they're looking for motion, or they're listening for sound, and all feeding off each other. So this simply meant that when an individual went into this rather quiet gallery space, they wouldn't be intimidated because the artwork would already be doing it without them, and they would simply add a dimension to it. So one of the things that we're very interested in is also getting members of the public to play with us, join in creating artwork for the space. So this particular project, which you can't particularly read it, perhaps because of the obstruction, but we created a Micro World Cardiff, so it's our digital ecosystem, and we invited artists and tinkerers into the space to make robots, provide music, create lights that would actually create a stimulus for the other artworks in the space, and also have an input to respond as well. And then as a part of that, we set up robot workshops, coding workshops, and invited people to participate and create life forms that would exist in the space. And that led on to us doing some more projects with Sean. This is one in Leicester, and it's where here you can actually see we have children and adults. We invite artists into the space to learn coding, and they will develop something. It could be in a very basic stage of development, and they can use the art space as a test space. And they can tinker with it and say, well, maybe I need to increase its sensitivity to blue, or maybe I want it to move to sound. And then we create happenings. So maybe we open up for an evening or a weekend, and people can come in and actually bring their work and test it out in the space as well. So we are inspired by science, and I suppose, are artists that work like scientists. We're experimenting, tweaking, developing, collaborating and learning. And so in the space today you'll see 4 pieces. The one at the bottom, multiple, then is this piece that any number can go into and interact with. We've got the squidlets where you can become digital art, you can add your face to it. These first 2 are very simple, so any age group can go in there and simply participate. And then the 2 on the right, which Tim is going to talk to you about when you go into the space in more depth. One is based on cellular automata. What he's done is, instead of actually sitting down and going through the code, which is done in processing, by the way, he's created an interface that shows you some of the rules you can set up to create complex systems. And then the drifters, then, inspired by plankton, things that bob about in the sea, waiting to be eaten and provide energy. This is actually then the participants can come in to design a creature and then add the various graphics, and then that enters the space. So, yeah, I think I'll stop there because the next thing we're going to do is to go into the space to see the work.